Hi guys, it's Pepikuno and this is my first YouTube video. So today I want to tell you about one of my favorite fringe mons, Linoone. And um, but first, why exactly do I want to make this video? Well, I've been playing Pokemon for a really long time now. And in fact, since the year 2005, I took a break and I've been back on the ladder for around 3 years now. Now, I'm not really a tour player, but I really enjoy team building and I love the fast feedback cycle that I get on ladder, which is why I hang out there mostly. But it would be such a shame to have all those lost in random replays. Especially since I've really spent a lot of effort to make some of these fringe Pokemon work, and to quite a good extent. So I would like to at least be able to record this, and hopefully you'll find it interesting to hear from me about how I build these teams with fringe mons. So I just hope you'll get something out of it, and let's dive right in. So, Linoone is a belly drummer, but it sets itself apart from other belly drummers in that it gets extreme speed. So, extreme speed is a priority move that is also really powerful with base 80. And why this is really important is that it gets leftovers. Now, let's compare it to something like Charizard. So Charizard also gets belly drum, but it's not that fast. It's only base speed 100, which means that it gets tied with Zapdos, gets outsped by Starmie, Gengar, some Gengar, Aerodactyl, and so on and so forth. So if it wants to outspeed those guys, it needs to use a Salak Berry. But using Salak Berry means that it needs a move to get down to Salak range, Double Edge or Substitute. That takes up a move slot, and furthermore, it's susceptible to dying to sand. For example, if Swampert just gets Protect off Charizard, that's basically 1/8 of its HP gone. So Linoone avoids this problem by using extreme speed, and then it can carry leftovers, which prevents it from dying to sand. And the great thing about this metagame is that even though Linoone is not that fast, it's also base 100, but just about everything faster is not resistant to extreme speed. Now the only exceptions are Aerodactyl, Gengar, and some Jirachi. And let's take a look at the role for Aerodactyl. So over here I have +6, 252 attack, Linoone extreme speed versus standard Aerodactyl, and it's a 43% chance to KO. Now that is acceptable. I mean, I'm using Linoone, I'm not using a real team, so I'm willing to live with that. Now Gengar will have to find a way to remove that, and fast Jirachi is not all that common. Okay, so that's also why I choose to use a speed of around 270. In fact, not exactly 270, but a little bit higher, 272 in this case. So most grounded rock types and steel types, Tyranitar, Metagross, they're all really slow, so we don't really have an issue with them. It's more that there are some faster but not that fast Jirachis and Celebes, and they're EV that way because they want to outspeed Heracross, which is at 269. So some Celebi and Jirachi carry enough speed EVs to outrun Heracross by 1 or 2 points, 270 or 271. So here I just go for 272. And this is also a nice number in that with this HP, I actually survived Blissey's Seismic Toss after a belly drum and a spike in sand. You can do the calculations, but just trust me, that works. So together with extreme speed and HP ground, I cover just about every Pokemon in the metagame except Gengar. And extreme speed also doesn't KO Celebi. So that's what we have Shadow Ball for. Now, Shadow Ball is not really to be used against Gengar. If you face Gengar in the end game, you probably lose. Because Gengar is faster anyway, so it's gonna KO Linoone just before Linoone takes it out. Alright, so that's so I've talked about the strengths of Linoone, but you know, two things: how do we set it up, and what actually checks it. So let's talk about how we can set it up first. So Linoone basically dies to everything, okay? Or rather, everything takes a chunk out of it, more than 50%. So here I have a calc of Zapdos Thunderbolt versus Linoone. And Thunderbolt basically does not one-hit KO, but comes pretty close. So you can see that, you know, even if I have something weaker, I don't know, like Metagross Psychic or something, it's still going to do a substantial amount of damage to Linoone. I think perhaps the only thing that doesn't two-hit KO Linoone is Suicune Surf. So with that in mind, we really need something to soften the damage on Linoone. And over here, so I have chosen Gardevoir. Now, Gardevoir itself is not an OU Pokemon, but it has some really interesting moves that it can use to its disposal. Okay, one of them is Memento. So this is the main this is the main reason to use Gardevoir. Memento is a move that lowers target's attack and special attack by 2 stages. So it importantly causes Gardevoir to faint, and by fainting the turn ends, so Linoone can come in safely. And because it has lowered the opponent's attack and special attack by 2 stages, as you can tell, if Zapdos wasn't one-hit KOing Linoone, it definitely isn't KOing Linoone after a belly drum, as long as its special attack has been reduced. Okay, so that's on the special side, but physical attacks can be a little bit more damaging. Now, perhaps we can take a look at, say, Choice Band Tyranitar. Okay, so Tyranitar does a ton to Linoone. Okay, it's basically going to KO Linoone, even if it's at -2. So that's not going to cut it. And for that reason, I'm adding Reflect on the team. Sorry, on Gardevoir. Now, it just tends to be the way in Advanced OU that physical attacks tend to be a little bit stronger than special attacks. And that's why I have Reflect on Gardevoir. Now, Reflect from Gardevoir actually can do some pretty amazing things. Like, if you face a standard Swampert, a standard offensive Swampert, you will find that if I manage to pull off a Reflect and lower Swampert's attack through Memento, then even Focus Punch is not coming close to KOing Linoone after a belly drum. So that's really neat. The same can be said of like Cloyster's Explosion, for example. Okay, so Now, status can really suck because Linoone is carrying leftovers. Thunder Wave can just stop the sweep, or Toxic can just wear Linoone down. So that's not good. And for that reason, I also carry Safeguard. It's especially important to use Safeguard against Blissey, because Blissey tends to carry those status moves. And finally, now the last move is kind of a toss-up. I mean, I could use Light Screen, but that's only really useful if somehow a Calm Mind Pokemon gets in first. Or I could use something else. Now, I have noticed through my experience of using Linoone that frequently you find offensive teams using Snorlax and Metagross, and both carrying Self-Destruct or Explosion. So this makes it really difficult for Linoone to set up because, if no matter how many attack drops I get through Memento or Reflect, Self-Destruct or Explosion is just going to blast through a 50% HP Linoone. So in order to ameliorate those odds, I put Swagger on Gardevoir. And it's not the most robust solution, but I was willing to settle for a 50% on Arrow, so I will settle for a 50% here on Snorlax or Metagross too. Okay, so now let's go on to what actually stops Linoone from sweeping. So Gengar is one of the most important things to deal with, and Gengar is faster than Linoone. It basically KOs Linoone before Linoone can do anything. So what I have over here is a Heracross. Now, typically, the way to remove Gar would be, or rather the most brain-dead way to remove Gar would be using Pursuit Tyranitar. But Pursuit Tyranitar is really passive. Generally, I have already used 2 slots over here, Gardevoir and Linoone. And these aren't particularly useful mons in the mid-game. So I really need to do the best that I can with the other 4 Pokemon. And I want to use something with a bit more offensive power, and so I decided on Heracross. Now, Hidden Power Ghost is really great at hitting Gengar. It does not one-hit KO Gengar, but with some Rock Slide chip, it will do the job. Now, other things that Linoone doesn't particularly like, well, as I mentioned earlier, there's Snorlax and Metagross. So for Metagross, I'm going to remove it with Counter Snorlax. Now, typically, lead Snorlax really it really smells of counter, but hey, I'm on ladder, and it's not such a big deal. I can get away with it. So importantly, counter Snorlax takes out Metagross and also takes out Tyranitar if I put enough HP and defense EVs into Snorlax, and that is exactly what I've done over here. Okay, and Snorlax also lures in Gengar. Once they found that I have counter, they might want to send it in. So if they take a Shadow Ball, and if they I get the chip, and Heracross can remove Gengar with HP Ghost. Okay, now Linoone obviously also gets walled by Skarmory, so I have Magneton over here to remove Skarmory. but it's kind of difficult to remove Skarmory if your opponent is a thinking opponent. And that's why I also have Focus Punch and Snorlax. Well, it serves two purposes. One, if you use counter, you convince your opponent that he or she should be setting up, like with Dragon Dance on Tyranitar or Salamence. Well, more importantly, Tyranitar. So that's how Focus Punch is useful. You counter once and then you Focus Punch the second time. But the other reason is that I can actually chip Skarmory and sort of convince my opponent that perhaps this is just a Magnetonless, spikeless offense team. Now, with Focus Punch, it's something people use to hit Skarmory, so it does a better job at giving the opponent some false reassurance that I don't have a Magneton, so I can just send Magneton in later and get the KO. Okay, so now I've pretty much decided on 3 Mons on team. That's Heracross for the Gardevoir, the Gardevoir, Snorlax for the Metagross Dior, and Magneton for Skarmory. So I need an offensive glue, and the remaining Pokemon I'm going to choose is Metagross. Now, the way this team works is that since I have so few Mons for both offensive and defensive purposes, okay, given that 2 of them are used for dedicated setup, I need something that can maintain the momentum. And I have chosen here Salakberry Metagross with Hidden Power Grass. And Hidden Power Grass actually deals also with one of Linoone's checks, Swampert. So the typical plus defense Swampert will survive extreme speed even after Belly Drum. So Hidden Power Grass is here to weaken Swampert for the Linoone sweep. Now, Salakberry helps to maintain the momentum, as you will see in some battles later on. And in general, it also allows Metagross to use Explosion as a last-ditch effort. Say, if Dark Trio comes in to trap it, or if, say, the opponent sacks Swampert just to get Metagross down to low HP, and the opponent thinks that he or she can send Zapdos in, but Metagross now outspeeds Zapdos and gets the free explosion. That's really something that's going to help. So the chronology of play of this team is pretty important. Technically, both Metagross and Snorlax can lead. It's just that if I lead Metagross, then it makes it a little bit more difficult to deal with Tyranitar since I no longer survive Focus Punch with these EVs upon taking a Zapdos T-Bolt. So I just decided to lead Snorlax. Okay, so why I say the chronology is important is that we have to use Snorlax to kind of lure Skarmory in, take Skarmory out with Magneton, and then through that use either Heracross or Metagross to do as much chip damage as possible before getting Gardevoir and Linoone in. Okay, so that's the gist of it. Now I've just added Reflect on Magneton because just in case Gardevoir doesn't get the opportunity. Thunder Wave because sometimes Linoone really needs all the hacks it can get from paralysis and uh, confusion just to get its belly drum going. So another one of Linoone's checks is Salamence. Now Salamence does die to Linoone. Where is it? Yep, Salamence does die to Linoone at +6 or even at +4 actually, but it can spam Intimidates, which can stop a Linoone sweep, which is why we need all of those Pokemon at the front, these 4 of them, to chip everything down as much as possible to ensure a Linoone sweep. Okay, so Snorlax, Magneton, Metagross, Heracross, Gardevoir, Linoone. That is the team, and what I want to do now is to ladder to 1500 with it. Now 1500 on the advanced ladder is the benchmark that I usually use for deciding whether Fringemon is viable, because, well, your ladder points don't decay. Your ladder points decay beyond 1500. So it's just a nice benchmark. And generally there aren't too many guys at the top of the ladder. Above 1500, you maybe have like 40 guys. So it's okay. It's an okay benchmark. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at some battles. Okay, before I start this section of the video, I just want to say that I laddered from 1400 to 1500 with this team, and I want to pick out the good battles for you guys to see. So many of the good battlers on the ladder are actually friends, and I don't really want to shame them. This is not a video of shaming people for losing to Linoone, but I'm just here to have some fun, and inevitably, if I want good replays from good players, I'm just going to have to feature some of them, and I really don't mean any harm. No, this is all just in good fun. Okay, so yep, I'm around 1400 now, and I'm facing Jayfeets. Now Jayfeets is a rain lover. Okay, so let's see what he does. He leads Ludicolo and Snorlax. I'm just going to try to take Ludicolo down as fast as I can with Focus Punch and Shadow Ball. And it'll be interesting to see what he brings next. Okay, so now Heracross comes in. At this point, I think Snorlax is still healthy enough to boom, and I want to keep it alive because Jayfeets is probably using a rain-based team, and it's full of special mons, which means that Snorlax can probably take a hit and boom later on. Whereas I also think that Jayfeets would probably expect me just to sack Snorlax by booming, because I have Focus Punch. It's an offensive Snorlax. So I decide that I'm going to save Snorlax and go to Heracross. But interestingly, Jayfeets decided to set up Heracross. And now my best hope is just to flinch Heracross down. But that doesn't happen, as you will soon see. So I have to bring Linoone in. Okay, now he goes for the Endure, but at this point, Jayfeets does not keep Heracross in. He keeps Heracross in, he does not save it for later on. I guess it might be that if I predict the switch and I use Belly Drum, then really bad things could happen. So anyway, he just decides to sacrifice Heracross, which doesn't retain speed boost anyway. And now Salamence comes in. So, well, the glue that I have on my team, Metagross, is going to come in useful here. Remember that Salamence Intimidates are not good for Linoone at all. So I'm bringing it in, and regardless of what he does, I'm just going to boom. And fortunately he stays in, so Salamence is gone. But okay, so he was probably willing to sacrifice Salamence because he has like a Snorlax at the back or something, and booming Metagross is probably the way to go for him too. But okay, so I don't really have much of a choice left. He sends in Magneton, and I don't really think I can get out of this easily. I could have gone to Gardevoir at this point to trap his Magneton. On hindsight, that might have been the right thing to do, but hey, I just wanted to make the best use of my Snorlax here, and I went boom. So saving it wasn't too bad of a decision. Okay, so now okay, he reveals his Snorlax, and fortunately I did not just use Gardevoir to set up Linoone previously. If I had, I think Suicune might have been able to take down, or rather be able to roar Linoone out. However, I now have another problem on my hands. Snorlax is going to curse up, and it's going to prevent Linoone from KOing it. So I have no choice but to try to hack Snorlax down. And unfortunately, Snorlax gets the better of Magneton. I can't really do much except to wear it down and hope that Gardevoir can now, set Linoone up. Okay, so Linoone's in, Snorlax is confused, and Snorlax attacks itself. Alright, so Snorlax is gone, and because I survived Suicune Surf, Suicune is also gone, and with some luck, I have won my first 1/400 battle with Linoone. Okay, so now let's take a look at the second battle. Okay, so my second opponent is Milotic, and he's rated 1505. Pretty high rating over there. Okay, and I'm right now at 1433. So let's see how this goes. Okay, he leads Suicune and I go Snorlax. Okay, now I just want to get as much chip as I can on either Suicune to set up a Linoone sweep, or whatever that comes in this case, Skarmory. Now, I guess it would have been quite easy for him to double switch at this point, but given that I have Focus Punch, I'm pressuring Skarmory, and it gives off the impression that I don't have a Magneton, so I'm just gonna go straight to Magneton here and hope he doesn't double switch, and indeed that is what he just spikes. So Skarmory is removed. Okay, so one good thing for Linoone. Yep, I get revenge killed. Okay, now from this team structure, I'm not really expecting to see a Salamence. I'm also not really expecting to see a Gengar. I mean, it could exist, but chances are, it's less likely than on the TSS Steam. So I'm just gonna straight Mega Horn, and he sends in Jirachi to take it, and I'm on my way to 3-hit KOing Jirachi, which is a good thing. Now, unfortunately, I missed the KO. So that kind of sucks because Jirachi basically walls the rest of my team. Um, and if I try to set up on it, then Suicune comes and roars me out. So that's not great. Anyway, I have to find some other ways of chipping Jirachi. So I go to Snorlax, I try to focus punch it down and hope that I can actually take it out. Now, I don't know if that would have taken out Jirachi, but I'm glad it did with the critical hit. So at this point, when Blissey comes in, I think he's going to switch out, in which case I should explode because I can set up on Blissey. He's not going to go to Dugtrio, and I can set up on Dugtrio too. What I can't afford having alive is Suicune, and potentially a Clay Doll exploding. I don't know if it's an explosion Clay Doll here. I mean, refresh Clay Doll would very easily be used here because of the lack of Magneton. But we'll see. I mean, it doesn't matter. Clay Doll's gone. Okay, so now this is a great opportunity for me to get the chip on Suicune, and Heracross is sacked. Okay. Now at this point, I think the best option is to, well, okay, there are two things that can happen here. One thing is that I could use Safeguard in anticipation of Blissey coming in to apply a status move, but I think that is highly unlikely because he's using a Wish Jirachi and a Clay Doll, so I suspect that it's actually Aromatherapy Blissey. You know, that actually helps Clay Doll. It gives Clay Doll the option to use Explosion and allows Jirachi to come in mid-game against Thunder Wave users. So I decided that you know, it's not worth it. I am simply going to use Memento. Okay, so Memento in. Okay, now we have Linoone sets up the sets up the belly drum. Okay, and with the reduced special attack, I survive. And now let's get some clean KOs. GG. Alright, okay. I'm at 1450. Great. Now, yeah, that was an interesting game. Not too sure what would have happened if Heracross KO'd yeah, I'm not sure what would have happened if Heracross KO'd Jirachi instead. I think it might have been a blessing in disguise to miss the Megahorn. Well, let's take a look at the third game. Okay, so my opponent's at 1450, but he leads Jolteon. Okay, so lead Jolteon is not common at all in today's metagame. Well, for one of Jolteon's biggest assets is Roar. But if you're using Roar, you can't really use Substitute to block Zapdos's Thunder Waves. So I'm not actually sure, you know, how good this guy is. I mean, not saying you can't use a lead Jolteon, but it's just not something I expected. So, thinking he'll Bidden Pass, I don't really want to reveal Focus Punch. I mean, facing guard at this point isn't the best, so I just Shadow Ball into a Tyranitar. And it doesn't have an item. Alright. rather it seems not to have an item. So when I say item, I mean leftovers. Now, I kind of was expecting this to be a mixed Tyranitar with Lumberry, but it turns out, as you can see, is a choice band Tyranitar. Now, I clearly clicked counter and it didn't work. So that's a bummer, but it's okay. I get Metagross in now, and what do I actually want to do here? Well, on this kind of team, I'm expecting Skarmory to come in, but given that he led Jolteon, I don't know. I might just want to play safe on this. Now, if I catch Swampert, great. Otherwise, it's not a big deal. So I just decided to go for the HP grass over here. And yep, Skarmory comes in. Okay, so I just get Magneton in here, and I don't think it was a really big issue that I didn't smash it with Meteor Mash, because on this kind of archetype, Skarmories are usually a little bit faster just to use Taunt. So they lack the special defense, and I'm expecting to one-hit KO Skarmory anyway. So yeah, that's what happens. Okay, Aerodactyl comes in. Need to figure out the best way to deal with Aerodactyl. So I just sack my Magneton because I think it's done its job. And Arrow can actually be pretty good setup for the later on. Yeah, I don't have to be too worried about it. Okay, so on this kind of archetype, I'm expecting a Gengar as a spin blocker, so I'm just going to straight HP Ghost it. Okay. Great. Okay, and now I just remove Gengar. Okay, so now I get Metagross in, and it's very likely to be a Swampert behind. I mean, it could be it could be a Metagross, but I didn't feel like I had to take too many risks over here. I'll just click Earthquake and see what happens. Okay, so yep, I bring Swampert down, and at this point I was kind of expecting him to use Protect, because to me that's like that's bulky Swampert damage. I wanted to give him the impression that I was just gonna keep HP grassing him down, regardless of what I do later. In fact, my plan was to keep Swampert alive at first, but it didn't end up being too important. So this is actually great. I get the chip on his Aerodactyl without him realizing that that was actually important. So because of that, I actually get Gardevoir coming in to set up Linoone, and Linoone is for certain to KO Aerodactyl with extreme speed now. And I don't think he would simply focus punch with Tyranitar here, because he does not know my last. He does not know that Gardevoir has no moves. So I just use Safeguard to scout focus punch, but really there was no good reason for that. Well, actually, I think I might have used Safeguard to prevent Jolteon from doing anything. Well, I don't really remember. Anyway, Linoone's in, Belly Drum, and from the power of Reflect and Memento, I survive a CB Tyranitar's Rock Slide. And there goes the rest of his team. Yep, it's quite funny seeing entire teams fall to Linoone when they think they have the upper hand. Okay, so now I'm at 1470, and let's go on to the next replay. Okay, so I'm facing a Hariyama team, and I go to Metagross because I can afford to lose Salakberry if it's going to be a stall team that I'm facing. So he knocks Salakberry off, and now I'm expecting Skarmory to totally come in here. And yes, I did double switch and I was rewarded, so now I get to have no spikes on my team, yay. Okay, so back to Metagross. I don't know what's behind, so I'm just I'm just going to explode because I think regardless of whatever came in, you know, be it a Milotic, or in this case a Vaporeon, you know, removing the bulky water is always going to help Linoone because Linoone can't necessarily kill those things with extreme speed. Okay, so that's Vaporeon down, and I just need to slowly take Hariyama out here. It probably has rest, but as long as I keep looping it, I think I'll be fine. See, these teams usually don't have Dark Trio, so I can just safely use Heracross over here. Okay, so at this point, his Hariyama probably doesn't want to die from Max T-Bolt, and he probably has a Blissey behind, so I'm double switching Heracross back in, and again I'm rewarded. Okay, as you can see, his entire team falls to Heracross now, and I don't even need to bring Linoone in. Okay, 1482. I probably just need another battle, and let's go ahead to the final replay. Okay, so before I start this replay, I must admit that I already had some suspicions as to who this person I'm facing was. I think it's Airports because I recognize the avatar, but let's take a look at the team. So he leads Zapdos, and I've played him before. He wasn't using the team I expected him to use, but he has a tendency of just you know, predicting the focus punch and attacking Snorlax straight up. So I'm just not going to reveal focus punch for now. And yes, now he thinks he can safely send in Skarmory while I focus punch. That's great. And I send in the Magneton again, bluffing that I do not have Magneton with the Focus Punch, but it pays off yet again. So he gets Spike, but I get Revenge Kill, which is okay. Now, Skarm Duck teams usually don't have solid Heracross answers, so I can simply just use Mega Horn, and now out comes Tyranitar. Okay, so here's something interesting. Now, if I go back straight up to the top of the game, I see that Shadow Ball basically did 24% to Zapdos. That's actually defensive Zapdos I'm facing, because an offensive Zapdos would take something like 30% from Shadow Ball. So now I'm looking at Zapdos, which is defensive, so it's probably Rest, but I also have Tyranitar on the team, and those two don't necessarily synergize, because Rest Zapdos takes a chunk out of Swampert's Ice Beam, or Blissey's Ice Beam. So I'm probably looking at another special check here, like Celebi, and this really convinces me that I'm facing Airports. Now, he's known to use special defense Swampert, and that makes sense because Dugtrio already covers Tyranitar anyway. So by having a little bit of special defense over here, he's more well protected against the mixed threats. So yeah, I'm just going to go straight for the Linoone sweep because I think that, or rather I thought that, where is it? Yeah, I thought that special defense Swampert will just fall to extreme speed without me needing to do any chip. Okay, so let's get back to the game. So one of the amazing things about Gardevoir is that Gardevoir's able to trap Dugtrio with Trace, and from there I can set up all sorts of screens against it. Reflect, if I really wanted I could have done Safeguard, but it's not important. Memento, okay. So now I just need the Belly Drum. He sends in Swampert, and in an anticlimactic moment I crit and he forfeits. So I will never know if he changed the Swampert just for just because he's facing Linoones on ladder, but based on my knowledge of his team, that Swampert would have been KO'd regardless. So that's basically it, from 1400 to 1500 with Linoone. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if there are other memes that you want to see from myself, or if there are any things you want to say about the videos, suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Alright, it's nice sharing this with y'all. Hope to be back sometime.